Okay. Welcome everybody to our Siyum on Massechet Kiddushin on Seder Nashim. We of course need to start with that we're going to be doing our learning today in the zechut of a safe return of all of the chatufim, of all of the hostages, who I know is on everybody's minds at all times, for the chayalim to return safely, for everybody and anyone who is injured, not just physically, but also mentally, that they should have strength and peace and healing. And I think just in general that we should come out of this safer, stronger, with more peace. We really know that this is a difficult time. I know that Ann and I started this over COVID, and we thought that was hard. This was it was hard this month for us. But it's really good to see you all here. And I think this gives me and Ann a lot of chizuk to keep going with Bava Kama. To see everybody here so dedicated and they're learning with us. We just again hope that this is a zechut for the safe return of all the hostages and chayalim and anybody who needs a refuah throughout all of this.
I'm just going to add that at the beginning of the past month, when people were really at a loss to know what day it was, right? At least in my circles in Jerusalem, school was, off. Half the people were not at their jobs. People's husbands, sons, brothers, cousins, etc., were called up, and I said, actually, I do know what day it is because I know what daf it is, and that we talk about the way the daf can ground us in a daily routine. I think that was really part of it. I guess I could have not known which day of the week it was just because I knew the daf, but it worked out. Okay. And I want to echo Yardena's prayer here. I think all of us share in it for the safe return of everybody and with great mourning for those who are lost. I want to note right here that we are finishing both Kiddushin and Seder Nashim. And so we're trying something a bit different this Siyum. We have two guests, and they're going to share different perspectives on some of the, I think, more personally, dramatically, either for some people troubling and for some people meaningful elements of Kiddushin, and reflecting, we know from all of the learning that we've been doing with the daf that it reflects back on the rest of Seder Nashim. So I would like to introduce both Shoshana Keats-Jaskal and Rabbinit Dina Rak. Shoshana Keats-Jaskal has been my partner in crime for many long years now. She is the mover and the shaker behind the organization Chokhmat Ashim, which I was privileged to be part of the founding team 10 years ago? Not quite 10, but close enough. And she has been working, I would say, tirelessly, although I know she gets tired, on behalf of, among other things, on behalf of women who are stuck in different situations because of halacha. So she has, I think, a particular view on what happens with the halacha of Seder Nashim and so on. Rabbinit Dina Rak has been with us before and will speak also from a different perspective on Kiddushin. Now, I want to say, the same way, Yardena, that you were looking for me, I am now looking for Leanne, because before we embark on our hopefully lively and interesting discussion about Kiddushin, those of you who have been with us before for a Siyum know that Leanne Shamash is our poet in residence, and she is truly the highlight, I think, the consistent highlight throughout all of our Siyumim. So now, Leanne, I see you. I'm going to pin you, and we will turn this over to you and then come back to the discussion and the reflections of Shoshana and Dina. Okay. Did the pinning work? I don't think it worked.
Yes, she's pinned.
I'm going to read this directly from my blog post. So this poem is for the Siyum of Massechet Kiddushin, which was completed a few days ago. As you know, if you have followed this blog, I write one poem for each of the Masechtot that we complete in this Daf Yomi cycle. Many of them you can see them. But for this last month of the cycle, it's been very hard for me to concentrate on the material. And I really wasn't successful in finding a topic that I felt comfortable writing about. That is, until I found on Daf 66b a note about the broken letter Vav in the word Shalom. And from the text, it says, from where do we derive the service of a blemished priest is retroactively invalid? Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, as the verse states with regard to Pinchas, wherefore say, behold, I give to him my covenant of peace, Shalom, which means that he receives the covenant when he is whole, Shalem, but not when he is blemished and lacking a limb. The Gemara comments, but Shalom is written rather than Shalem. Rav Nachman says the letter Vav in the word Shalom is severed. According to tradition, this letter is written with a break in it, and therefore the word can be read as though the Vav were missing. The severed Vav appears in Torah and Parashat Pinchas after Pinchas the Zealot slays Zimri and Cosbi. There are reasons that the rabbis give as to why the severed Vav must appear broken in every kosher Sefer Torah. But the base lesson is that peace is indeed a fragile thing, difficult to make, difficult to maintain, and bring back together when it is broken. This poem is not like the others I've written, where I try to take from concepts we've reviewed and write to them about you, for you. I apologize to you for this. Instead, this poem will remind us that as we learned Massechet Kiddushin, great damage was done to peace in our land. This will be a time that we will remember forever. It will go down as a sad time in Jewish history, but let us hope that peace will someday come. I always send my poems to our teachers, Anne and Yardena, before I read them at our Siyum. Anne replied to my email saying that she was glad that I was able to find something specific in the Massechet when I searched. Indeed, perhaps this is one of the lessons of the Daf for me, that if you will look, you will find. So my poem is called A Prayer for the Severed Vav, Parshat Pinchas. There it is. Do you see it? The Vav of Shalom is broken, a tiny fissure at its heart. I want to crawl into the space between the upper and the lower Vav, crawl into that infinitesimal space, that filament of emptiness, a void that separates war from peace, wholeness from separateness. I want to rise up in that space between top and bottom, uncurl myself in the darkness, reach up, standing on the shoulders of the Avot and Imahot, on the shoulders of our grandparents and great-grandparents, of fellow Jews everywhere. I want to pull with my hands at the top of the upper letter Vav with all the strength of Shimshon HaGibor and bring the Vav down, connecting it with the Vav below that patiently waits and yearns. And then I will connect it, the top and the bottom of that Vav, with all my heart and all my soul and all my might, and bind it together. Clamp its broken edges, seal it as a sign of peace. I want peace. I want the word shalom. Ribono shel ha'olam, you who in your infinite wisdom created the heavens and the earth, darkness and light, separations between the ordinary and the holy, between Israel and the nations. Grant your people, B'nai Israel, a vav, not separated, but whole. Shalom. Bring peace to the land. Bring peace to your people. May they be united. Lev echad, one heart. Am echad, one nation. Thank you for listening to me.
Amen. Leanne, you always find the words, always. And we're so pleased that you join us to share them with us. Okay. It's a little hard to switch gears. I feel like that's what we've been doing for the past month, now and again, shifting gears to get to the basics of our Talmud study. So let's do it now. Let's see. I'm going to unpin Leanne and let's pin Shoshana. Dina will introduce you further when we come to your turn, and you'll both have a chance, of course, to respond to each other. We want to make sure everybody understands we're not setting anybody up here as a debate. We are wanted to represent different perspectives, different reflections. And therefore we've, as two people for whom I have great respect for each of them as individuals and as learners and as, I guess, educators and activists in their own respective regards. And so here I would like to welcome to Talking Talmud's Siyum and our community, Shoshana Keats Jaskal. Take it away.
Well, kol hakavod to all of you for actually doing the work. I'm just coming in and talking about things I talk about all the time, but it's lovely to see this community and it's lovely to be here. Thank you for that beautiful poem. And yeah, I mean, the background currently is a very difficult one. So if I am not as eloquent as I might want to be, then I'm sure you will all understand. I was told that the topic is Kiddushin, what I think about it, how I see it, what I would like to happen with it. And I think, first of all, a little background. I'm not a learner. I am not an academic. I am a very practical, pragmatic person who has personal, not myself, I am not divorced, nor was I ever denied a get, thank God. But I have a lot of personal experience with women who have been denied a get and what Jewish marriage and Jewish divorce are today. And I think when we learn, right, when we learn Gemara and we read all this stuff, it's 2,000 years ago, and yes, it's forever, but also we know that it was written 2,000 years ago for a very, very different time, for a very different reality, for a very different set of communal and social norms. And so I was asked to present, what I think about Kiddushin in today's world. And I'm not going to get into what is Kiddushin. You guys have read, you know far better than I do. And for me, it doesn't matter. Why? Because what matters to me is what's happening today. And if what I know about Judaism, I'll just briefly, I grew up in Lakewood, New Jersey. I wasn't brought up in a religious household, but a very Jewish knowledgeable household. I became religious in my teens and caught up a little bit in my lack of learning. And about, as Anne said, days and timing is off for me a little bit, but I think it was 2007 or 8, right after I made Aliyah for the third time, that my husband's aunt, who lived in Muncie, was being denied a get. Her husband had come to Israel because he was deported from the States, and she asked me for help. I had no idea what that meant, but she was asking me for help, and he was here, and I started to ask questions. And what that did for me was to help me understand how Jewish marriage plays out when someone wants a divorce, when a woman wants a divorce, what it looks like inside a bet din. I stood there in her stead. So even though I wasn't the one getting the divorce, I was the one asking for the divorce with her representative, and I saw what happens to women in a bet din. And so my answer to the question isn't, well, what do I think about it? It doesn't really matter what I think about it. What I see happening today is something that is in complete, I'm just gonna make my phone quiet because it's not gonna shut up, is in complete and total opposition to what I know about Judaism and what Judaism is as a whole, as a religion. So if laws that were meant to help women, to sanctify life, to give dignity and respect, are now problematic, are now doing the opposite, then we as the Jewish people who live and breathe and learn halacha have the obligation to fix that. How that fix looks, I couldn't care less. People far, far more knowledgeable than me. I can tell you what people have told me their ideas are. I can tell you what rabbis have tried to do. I can tell you what rabbaniyot have tried to do. It doesn't matter, right? For this discussion, for me, today I see Jewish marriage and divorce become the antithesis of what it's meant to be. Instead of a holy, wonderful, family-making unit, for me, I see a couple under a chuppah, and I am afraid. I wonder if they've signed a halachic prenup. I wonder if he's going to betray her. I wonder if anyone told her as she bought her dress and her flowers and she got her nails done and she daven for all the people that were asked to daven for. If they told her that standing under the chuppah and silently accepting that ring means that if this person next to you says, I'm not interested in letting you go when you ask to be let go, you're stuck. And I feel that we are doing a disservice, not only to women, but to Jewish marriage as an institution, to Judaism as a beautiful religion, and to the original intent of all of those laws meant to protect Jewish women by leaving this as it is and not changing it the way it needs to be, so that Jewish marriage is only and solely a positive thing. And when it doesn't work, it can be ended. And am I good?
Thank you, Shoshana. Thank you, Shoshana. That was great. Dina, I'm still fiddling with the pins and so that we can make sure that our speakers are front and center, but I'm getting the hang of it.
I'm on the pinning, and I'm gonna have them just
Okay.
be side by side for now.
Perfect.
Okay, I don't know how to do anything with technology, so I'm gonna leave that to you guys. Okay, first of all, it's so great to see Shoshana. I've actually brought her in to speak to my students because I totally also, I don't view this as a debate. I agree like wholeheartedly with everything that Shoshana said. Again, I've even brought her into to speak to my students, and I hope to do that again this year. So I guess if I understood correctly, I hope I understood what Anne brought me on to share is at least just like a perspective on Kiddushin, because ironically, like Shoshana started by saying like that she's not a learner and has never been divorced. I was like, everything she was saying that she's not, I'm like, oh, I am that. Meaning I am a learner and I have been divorced. So I sort of do fit both of those. Baruch Hashem, I am happily remarried. But if I understand correctly, I think that Anne asked me to join to share a perspective, especially as somebody, again, who actually I myself also made the Siyum on Kiddushin on Friday. So both as somebody who has actually just finished also, I'm like doing the daf journey along with all of you, and as somebody who has actually gone through Kiddushin twice and get once, like sort of what my thoughts are about it. So I guess what I would say is, first, I do want to start off by saying that I agree with Shoshana, that I do think that we as the, Jewish community together, hand in hand with the rabbis, need to figure out ways to prevent the system from being abused. That I agree 100%. And I do believe that there are ways, again, even the halachic prenup has gone a long way to at least helping. And we just need to make sure that all rabbis insist on couples getting it before they agree to perform the Kiddushin and things like that. But again, the solutions I will also leave to other people, since I think I'm brought on here to share different perspective, given again that I have, even as I said, gone through Kiddushin twice and divorced once. Like in terms of just like, what are my thoughts, especially as, again, somebody who did learn all these sugiyot and everything like that, like, what are my thoughts about it? So I guess what I want to share is that despite the fact that there are 100%, unfortunately, abuses of the system, and that there definitely are elements of the system that can be difficult for us to learn about and understand as women, that bigadol, the way that at least I'm just sharing my personal feelings and experiences, that I wouldn't want to lose sight of what I at least feel and experience as, we'll answer that question in a second, is what I don't want to lose sight of what I find to be the beauty and the power and the incredibleness of the system as a whole, that yes, there are abuses that absolutely must be addressed, but again, to me, the fact that there are some abuses that need to be addressed, I don't want that to make us lose sight of the whole picture, which I, at least again, in my experience, is actually something that I feel very strongly about. To first just address for a second the question that came in, since I used the term the halachic prenup, it's something that couples can and should sign. They can sign it before they get married. That's most recommended, but even a couple who's already married and hasn't signed it can even sign it now, even 5, 10, 15, 20 years into their marriage. The term prenup is an unfortunate misnomer, I think, because it makes people think of like that it's all about, the like who's going to get what money. It actually just says that if they agree to a civil divorce and are living separated, then he must give a Jewish divorce a get. And if he doesn't, then here are the financial penalties that he will suffer if he's withholding the get. And what's so significant about it is that it can be enforced even in a secular court, because it's just an agreement that he entered into, or incentives or whatever. Again, I don't perhaps know enough about it myself, but it's a very, as far as I'm aware, again, Shoshan, you can correct me, I think that in almost every case, if not every case of a couple who had one, the husband did ultimately give the get, because otherwise he was going to have to pay a large financial penalty. So I hope that's correct. In any case, but just to share my own,
finish.
Oh, okay, or you can answer now if it did whatever. Yeah, I hope I said that right. I think it's always, I think it has prevented all cases of aguna, no, where they had one. No, oh.
No,
But at
which
least
is
it helps,
which is part of my. I mean, I don't want to interrupt what you're presenting, so I think you should present, and then we can talk about.
Okay.
We can get into
Sure.
it afterwards.
Okay. Sure. Okay, so again, so I really just want to share my own just personal thoughts, feelings, experiences. So the first thing that I want to share is even just to like in terms of like even just a personal like story and experience is that, so again, on the one hand, as a woman who even went through divorce, though I will say, thank God, like my ex-husband gave the get without a problem, so I didn't go through being an aguna, like that aspect, thank God, it was not a problem. But I even want to share that after I got divorced, I wanted to like sell all my jewelry, not even because, say, it brought back bad memories or anything like that. Just I had no emotional attachment to it. Happens to be I'm not a jewelry person to begin with. So like, Chaval, may as well at least get the money. Anyway, so I went to a jeweler to like, I priced it a bunch later, whatever it is. And I went to sell it, and I sold it. And then after I drove away from the store, I actually in the car suddenly had this feeling of, how could I have like just sold the wedding band? I mean, not the engagement ring, that no problem, take it. I'd rather have the money. The simple, that's worth, I don't know what, 100 shekel, 200 shekel. It's not expensive, because the whole thing is it can't even have any like adornments or whatever it is. It's just a plain simple band. It's not worth a lot of money. But I felt this incredible sense of that tiny little simple band that's again worth, I don't know what, $50 or something. It's not expensive, definitely less than $100, I'm pretty sure. I just felt like, how could I have sold it? Why? Because I just felt like that simple, plain band had such halachic power. Like that little simple band, that is what made me like married. That's what created that halachic reality of being like Eshet Ish that I then needed to get out of through the process of get. And I actually drove back to the store, bought back the wedding band, and I still have it. And again, not for like emotional, sentimental, or anything like that, just because of a sense of it had, and I'm not joking, I have it upstairs. I was even thinking of getting it out just to like be able to show you, but whatever, I take my word for it. Like just because of that sense of the power, the halach power. Again, it wasn't even that it brings back positive memories or negative memories or anything. It's not about sentimental connection. It was just about, this had such power. I can't just sell it for like a few dollars. And I'm glad that I still have it. It's the one thing that I saved and that I still have. And with that is sort of what I wanted to sort of express again, just in terms of my own personal feelings about Kiddushin, despite again having been somebody who then needed to break it, is I feel that there is something so significant and so powerful in their, yes, being a ritual that bonds two people, and that actually in some ways like demands commitment, and that means that should the two people again not want to be together, and again I was one of them, but that it shouldn't just be something simple to walk away from. Now again, I certainly don't think it should be something that could be used as a weapon for one to hold over the other, but that there is something that created this halachic bond. And what it reminds me of is the opening Rambam to Hilchot Ishut, talk like to the laws of like relationships between men and women, starts by saying that before Matan Torah, that's basically what happened. A man would see a woman in the marketplace and they would just go home together, and that was it. And with the implication being, and then should he not want to be with her anymore, then he could just cast her out. And that, to me, even though, again, yes, there are the discrepancies between the man's role and the woman's role that are difficult, and that I do think that we need to address. But the fact that, to me, fundamentally, what Kiddushin is about is actually, I wouldn't say it's about protecting the woman, but I do feel that it is about sanctifying relationships and saying this is about commitment, and it's not just about a man seeing a woman in the marketplace and taking her home and then being able to just cast her out. It's about, and even the fact that Kiddushin demands witnesses is actually also something that the Rambam focuses there in that opening halacha. That it's not even something that could just be done fly by night, and then that the community is even like part of, and it's done, Kedat Moshe Yisrael, with the community sort of whatever, that this is part of the community institution. One last piece also that I'll share before I turn over the mic, so to speak, is that I also had to teach the very opening sugya of Kiddushin, which again we all did, but again, I don't know, a few months ago, since now we've gotten to the end. But it starts by saying that there's three ways, right, for a man to be mekadesh a woman, and one of them is money. And the Gemara even asks, how do we know that one of the ways is money? And it learns it from a gezerah shava, a word play between the fact that the word ki yikach ish isha, when a man takes a wife, is what's used to describe a man marrying a woman, and then that same word of kicha, taking, is used when Abraham buys a field to bury Sarah. It says, here's the money, kach mimeni, right? Take it from me. And it just, I used to hate teaching that sugya, because I was like, the Gemara just digs itself deeper and deeper into a hole, right? Bad enough that like a man buys a wife, and that one of the ways for him to buy a wife is with money. Then they even ask, how do we know it? And we learn that he buys a wife with money from the way he buys a field. It's like, can it possibly get any worse? And I used to like avoid teaching that sugya, because I didn't know what to do with it. And then a few years, like after I was like always trying to avoid it, I read this, like, it was like a 1-page like article by Rabbi Benjamin Blech, I think, who basically shared, it was really an article, actually it was a longer article about gezerah shava, these word plays, as just one example. In 1 page, he happened to address that kicha one about marriage. And what he said, like, just totally like shifted my perspective 180 degrees, where he said, we're not learning that a man can like buy a wife from the way that you just buy any field. It specifically learns it from how Abraham purchased Ma'arat Machpelah to bury his beloved wife Sarah. And therefore, it's not trying to compare how a man like acquires a wife to how you just like buy a piece of property. It's trying to use as a model for marriage, this model marriage, and this act of like enduring love and total love and devotion. He knew she was never going to even know and be able to pay him back. And to me, that was just an example of where something that I just viewed as like this such offensive, difficult sugya, like just by reading that 1 page, just like shifted my perspective 180 degrees of like, oh, it's not about how a man acquires a field. It's about how Avram purchased this like, burial plot for his beloved wife. And to me, that just serves as a model that I try to keep for myself, of even when something seems difficult. Again, yes, we should also try whenever possible to make changes that we can to make it better. But I just also like, it just really shifted my perspective a lot of how something that I just avoided teaching because it was so offensive actually can be looked at through a totally different lens.
And I see that you have things to say.
I have no poker face, I know. So I actually do agree with the concept that things that we see as offensive were actually intended to be, or can be, intended to have been beautiful and meaningful, or the opposite of what it seems like to us today. I agree with that. And actually, I will even go one further and say that sota, which I always thought was legitimately disgusting, the idea of taking a woman and disheveling her and throwing her in front of people and saying, you adulterous whore. Sorry if there are kids on here. And someone, a woman, actually, a friend of mine said to me, recently. She said, Sota actually protected women. She said, what do you think men did with women they thought were cheating on them back then? Do you think they were going to wait for a trial? Did you think they were going to wait to ask questions, or they were just going to either beat them or throw them out or kill them? She said the fact that they had to wait, they had to give warnings, they had to have witnesses, they had to bring them to the Beit HaMikdash. And Hashem said, I will give justice, stay your hand. That was a way of protecting women. And I said, you know what? I totally get that. And I can see Sota differently now. But I'm sorry, we do not live 2,000 years ago. And today, taking a woman out, uncovering her hair, and accusing her of adulterous affairs is not protecting women. We don't do that anymore. And unfortunately, today, Kiddushin and marriage and silence under the chuppah and holding up your finger and saying, I am Eshet Ish now and I have no way out, does not protect women. It is not a beautiful thing anymore when people are too easily allowed to abuse it. And if something in Judaism is being abused, we have an obligation now, not tomorrow, now, yesterday, to take care of it, because the Jewish religion is a beautiful, dignified religion that should not be allowing this for a second. My aunt waited 14 years for a get. She had her entire life completely on hold. And since I helped her, I have met hundreds and interviewed hundreds of women who were either abused, extorted, had their children taken from them. And it wasn't, you could say, you know what? People are abusive. I agree with you. People suck. But for the Beit Din, for the Bate Din, not to fix this, for them to allow and encourage this abuse sometimes.
I don't know.
I know women who walked in to try and get a divorce. And the Dayanim and the guy is ready to give it. And the Dayanim go, why are you doing it so easily? You could get money. What is this? Our entire system is corrupt. And it's nice to ideologically say, wow, it's a beautiful thing. I agree with you. In concept, it's beautiful. In reality, it doesn't work like that. Because he does purchase her. And he does have to say goodbye to her on his own terms. And she, again, is silent. As you know, Dina, she stands there, she accepts it, she walks, she comes back, not a word. And I don't think today's Jewish women deserve this. I think today's Jewish women deserve a different type of you want to call it a kinyan, whatever. Again, the halachic terms are not my bag, but I believe in the Jewish people. I believe in the Jewish family. I believe in our safety of our daughters and the kavod of our daughters and our sons. I have 3 sons. My son, Baruch Hashem, got married last year. And he knew for years already he's signing a prenup because his mother signed a post-up, his parents signed a post-up. I want to tell you, when I first got married, my mother-in-law, she wasn't my mother-in-law at the time, but she said, you should sign a halachic prenup, a halachic, agreement. And I had no idea what it was. Now I understand why she said it, because her sister was in the midst of trying to get a divorce. So I said to her, okay, I'll ask my rabbi. So I said to my rabbi, I said, my mother-in-law wants me to sign a halachic prenup. Do you know what he said to me? Nah, what do you need that for? I'll break his knees. And my rabbi was 6'7", and he definitely could have broken someone's knees. However, that is the height of irresponsibility. For him to look at me and guarantee that if I ever needed him, he was actually going to be violent with my husband. That if I ever needed him 10, 20, 30 years, he was going to come to my rescue. The hubris. That is a job of a rabbi. And my point in saying this is that concept, idealism, it's beautiful, but we don't live on the daf. We live now. And it's not working now. And the way that Judaism is supposed to work is that we find solutions so that halacha doesn't become a trap, so that it is a wonderful way to walk with God every single day. And I want to walk my daughters down the chuppah in total and complete joy. I can't until this is fixed.
Gina, returning it back to you if you have response, thoughts, something to say back. I know Shoshana can be on. I co-host a a different podcast with Shoshana, and I know that she can sometimes be a hard act to follow.
Yeah, but again, I don't think that we I think the only like sort of which maybe is not so insignificant, but point of like I agree we need to fix the system. I agree that the Aguna problem is a terrible problem for the people and for Am Yisrael and what it says about the whole institution. I guess the only, I don't know, maybe difference or whatever is that I am like still see beauty in the system and would just want to see tweaks that in some way close this gap, almost to use the analogy of Leanne of like pulling the two vavs together, like something that will like close that gap and not allow this abuse to happen. I agree, we need to stop letting this abuse happen, but I guess just I would rather see it in some way that's like just pulling those two halves of the vav together to like just close that gap. I don't see the system as fundamentally flawed. I see there as being a gap that is very problematic that needs to be addressed and closed without it meaning that the entire system needs to be fundamentally changed. We just need to like stop the potential for that abuse, I guess is how I see it.
So I hear that and I appreciate it. I think that I'm already married 25 years. So for me, I'm not going back and changing anything at this point. But I do think there's what to be said about people who don't want to get into a relationship that is so fundamentally one-sided, where he is doing the acquiring, she is silent. There are people women fundamentally uncomfortable with, and maybe again, now if I knew then what I know now, right? Or if I was getting married now, I think I might have a problem with the way it is, with being silent, with being acted upon, with not being part of a partnership, but rather an acquisition. And so I do think someone else who, not me, but someone else who was arguing this point would probably, and I should probably raise this point, that fundamentally the way it is might also be a problem. That it's not only because there's injustice, but also because women want to be active partners in a marriage, not just eshet ish. I can't stand that phrase anymore. It makes me nauseous. I'm sorry, I can't. Between the mamzerim, between children who are considered mamzerim because their mother was an eshet ish to someone who didn't bother seeing her for 20 years, who abandoned her. So many issues I take with the whole concept and the way that this kinyan plays out on the woman and the child, but not the man. He is fine. He can go find as many women as he wants. Yes, I know he needs a heter me'erabanim, but they get them. And so they're actually, aside from the injustice, if we're looking at it tachlis, and if we're being honest, and if I'm doing my job as the person who's supposed to be here giving this perspective, then yeah, we really just need to the elephant in the room is that it is not an equal partnership. It is not people who are coming together in an equal way, and the results of this relationship they don't play out the same on each partnership. And so I think I probably have to say that I don't think it's appropriate for today's relationships, and that, again, I'm not arguing this halachically, I'm arguing this in the practical, pragmatic way of wanting women and men to have good partnership marriages. Doesn't sit right with me as it is either.
All right, thank you. We'll open it up for questions. I think I'll just add my perspective here. I've actually been very involved with Aguna issues for many years, and currently still a board member of the Organization for Resolution of Agunot, ORA, in the United States. And one thing I can share with you, just speaking about the halachic prenup, is that the organization itself has shifted. They have very few cases from the modern Orthodox world anymore because of the prenup. I'm not saying the prenup works in all cases, but one thing that the halachic prenup does do is it sort of weeds out. In other words, if fiance refuses to sign one, that really becomes sort of like a major red flag for families. And sometimes those marriages will not go through. And so they have many fewer cases from the communities where halachic prenup has basically just become standard and rabbis won't even marry you, as opposed to, let's say, some other circles in Judaism where they're starting to see, more cases from, let's say more the yeshivish or right-wing world. So that is something that I do know does exist. And thank you both for your perspectives. I love what Lori wrote here. Thank you both for both and each for sharing these perspectives and for discussing respectfully. Wonderful modeling and Talmudic at its core. So I definitely appreciate that. If anybody has any questions, please drop them in the chat.
Or raise your hand.
Or raise your hand and you can ask it. I don't see any hands.
I think we've solved it.
Okay, we solved it. The two of you solved it. Oh, okay. Yes, we will. We will email out a copy of the poem when we send out the Siyum link. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Someone here, we have a few questions here. Okay. Laura would like to know who oversees the collecting of the financial consequences when a prenup is in place. Would that part of it hold up in a civil court, or does the Beit Din do that? So it's I don't know. Do either of you want to answer that? Or I know it's different in America or Israel.
It depends on the country you're talking about. Basically, it's like this. For the RCA, I'm assuming most of you are in either America or in Israel. So the RCA prenup works like this. The person who wants a divorce says, I want a divorce. The person who is receiving that information can either say, usually what it's written, it says they can ask for marriage counseling or they can say yes. If they say no, then what happens is it's $150 usually a day of spousal support. It's not a fine and it's not a punishment, because that's asur halachically and it would be a coerced get. It is financial spousal support of the other partner. It could be the woman to the man to the woman. Whoever's saying no has agreed to give $150 a day. If he's wealthy or she's wealthy and they say no, they can do it forever. If they run off, they can do it forever. If the court does not uphold it, it doesn't help. In Israel, it works a little bit differently. There's there's 3 or 4 different versions of the prenup in Israel. So I won't waste our time getting into all of them, but if anybody wants, I'm happy to explain it differently. But the concept is the same. There's a financial disincentive to the withholder. And who would be the person putting it in America? It would be the civil court because it's a legal document. And in Israel, it would be, well, the Beit Din doesn't really love them so much, but it will be either the Beit Din or the Beit Mishpat, depending on where the people are having their case heard.
Okay, thank you. Ruth would like to know, we have been to a wedding that used a partnership format. Is that an option? I'll let Dina answer that.
Gonna say, can you describe more? It depends probably on what exactly that means. Like what exactly did they do?
Ruth, you can unmute yourself. Here, I unmuted you.
It was, might not get the word right, shtar shetufim, putting items of value in a bag, lifting them up together as though joining a financial partnership, corporation, something like that. And they used that as an egalitarian format to avoid many of these issues that we've been discussing. That may be,
it's not
and I'm
Kiddushin.
pardon me?
I was gonna say, did they also do Kiddushin and then just did that in addition, or that was instead of?
That was instead of Harayat Mekudeshet Li.
So if it would, in theory, say be done in addition, then it probably could be okay. Meaning the issue is that halachically there does have to be, which I think is like, say, where Shoshana and I part ways, is I feel like that's the halacha, and that piece I wouldn't change. I would just try to like close that gap that allows for abuse. And it sounds like Shoshana even feels like, no, fundamentally, like, and again, I get the problem with it, but bottom line is the halacha demands that, yes, in some way, the husband do some act of kinyan, whether it's, and again, nowadays it's only through kesef, but it doesn't have, it could be a ring, it could be anything of value, it doesn't have to be a ring, but that he does have to do something that he gives her to enact this halachic new reality of them being of her being betrothed to him. So again, in theory, we can add other things. Like I watched a wedding again, it was during Coronas, it was over Zoom, but it was beautiful, and they each read like these beautiful, like it was actually something, it wasn't each to each other, they had written it together, and it was very beautiful, but it was in addition to doing, a kiddushin.
Okay, Batsheva would like to know, how do you respond to more right-wing perspective that say that this type of prenup is halachically unsound and invalidates the marriage?
It's just not true. I mean, it's not true when you can have a list of the rabbis that have backed it. They're Gedolei Hador. It's not true. It's not true. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm happy to give you a list. You can look it up. You can read it. It's just not true.
Okay, and then Dina, there's a request if you could please give the reference to the article about the Gezerah Sheva by Rabbi Bleich. You can send that to me and we
Yeah,
can
I'm happy
email it
even
out
to, again,
later.
the part about, it was a part of a longer article about Gezerah Shev in general, but the part about Kiddushin was literally one page. So I'm happy to just
Great,
forward
so
to
you send
you
that to
and
me
or
and
Anne.
I will send it out to
Sure.
our group. Okay, great.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. I think this gave everybody a lot to think about. And hopefully also to get us to think about a little bit halacha l'masa, what are we each doing, I think, to solve what I think most of us would probably consider here, probably one of the most pressing, if not the most pressing halachic issue in modern Judaism, which is how to solve this aguna issue and the abuse of Torah and halacha in this way. And we hope that Dina and Shoshana will both come back and speak to us again. Dina, this is your second time. And Shoshana, we'll have to get you a second time too, and the both of you a third time, so it evens out. So thank you again. Okay, and with that, Anne and I are gonna actually finish up the Masechet itself. Anne, I'm trying to find you.
I'm here.
Yes, okay,
still
so
here.
you finish up the Masechet and then I'll do the Hadron.
Okay, so those of you who are, up to speed, will recall on Friday, right, that we ended the Masechet with a very different note from most of what has gone on in Kiddushin. Rav Nahorai Omer Maniach Ani Kol Umanot. It says Rav Nahorai says he set aside all of the trades. He's going to teach his son only Torah. Tanya Rav Nahorai Omer Maniach Ani Kol Umanot Shabolam Be'ini Milamed Bini Ela Torah. I'm only going to teach my son Torah. Shekol Umanot Shabolam Ein Omedet Lo Ela Bimei Yalduto, because all of the other trades only serve one in the days of one's youth. But in the days of his old age, he's going to just be left hungry. Aval Torah ain't okay, but that's not the case for Torah. Torah will stand a person in good stead in his, let's add, her childhood and his or her youth, and then also lo acharit v'tikva ba'et ziknuto, and then also provide future and hope in one's old age. Ba'et yalduto mahu omer, and what does one say in the time of one's youth about a Torah scholar? The koi kaye Hashem yachlifu koach yalu aver kinesharim. It's a verse from Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 40, but they will wait with the Lord to renew their strength. And Biziknuto Maomer, what does one say in one's old age? They will bring forth fruit in their old age. They will be full of sap and richness. That's a verse. That's a very famous verse that shows up in Tefillah, in the prayers all the time, in Psalms 92. And here we say, Hadranach, sorry, Yuchasin, Vasilkala Massechet Kiddushin, Vasilkala Seder Nashim. Yardena, the Hadran to you.
Okay. Hadran alach Massechet Kiddushin v'Hadran alan. Datach alav Massechet Kiddushin v'datach alan. Lo nishtane minach Massechet Kiddushin v'lo nidashe minan. Lo ba'alma hadim v'lo ba'alma da'ate. Yehi ratzon l'fanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'lehi avotenu shetehei toratecha l'emunatenu v'alam hazeh v'tehei imanu le'olam haba. Chanina bar Papa, Rami bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Achai bar Papa, Abba Mari bar Papa, Rafam bar Papa, Rachish bar Papa, Sorcha bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Dara bar Papa. Harevna Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratzchenu b'finu u'b'fifaot amcha be'Yisrael. V'nehiyah anachnu v'tzetzaenu v'tzetzei amcha be'Yisrael. Kulani yodei shemecha v'lamdei l'ortecha lishma. Me'avai techamchini mitzvotecha kidei olam hili. Yihi libi tamim b'chukecha l'man lo evosh. Yolam lo ashkach pekudecha kibam chitani. Baruch ata Adonai lamdeni chukecha. Amen, amen, amen. Sela ba'ed. Modim anachnu lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'lehavtenu shesamta chalkenu miyoshvei beit midrash v'lo samta chalkenu miyoshvei karnot. She'anu mashkimim v'hem mashkimim. Anu mashkimim divrei Torah v'hem mashkimim divrei b'telim. Anu amelim v'hem amelim. Anu amelim mekablim schar v'hem amelim v'einam mekablim schar. Anu ratzim v'hem ratzim. Anu ratzim l'chayei ha'olam haba v'hem ratzim lever shachat. Shenamar v'atelahim toridim lever shachat anshei damim u'mirma lo yechatzu yimehem v'ani avtach bach. Yehi ratzon lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu kashem she'azartanu l'sayim Massechet Kiddushin v'seder nashin kain ta'azreinu lehatchil masechtot u'sfarim achirim u'lesamem l'mod u'lelamed l'shmor v'lasot u'lekayim kol divrei Talmud Toratecha b'yahava u'zechut kol hatanaim v'hamorim v'tamidei chachamim ya'amdu lanu u'lezarenu shelo tamush haTorah mipinu umipi zarenu v'zara zarenu ad olam v'titzkayim banu v'hitalechacha tanicha otach v'shivchacha tishmor alecha v'hakitzota hi tisicha ki v'yirbu yamecha v'yosifu lecha shnot chayecha ori chamim v'yimina u'b'smol asher v'chavod Adonai oz li'amo yitain Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. Thank you,
I wanna note
everybody.
for those-
We'll see
for
you
those of
again
you who are
in March,
keeping-
Bezrat Hashem.
And for those of you who are keeping track, we've now completed 20 Masechtot.
Oh, wow.
We've begun the 21st. And as Yardena says, we'll reconvene in March.
Thank
Feel
you.
free to talk amongst yourselves for a few minutes if you want.
Thank you, Barbara Stern.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much.
I
Hope
am.
all is well.
This was great. Is Gabrielle around?
He is. He can say hello at a different time.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
This was very